Good evening, everyone. Welcome to, good evening. I'm Hendrell Remus. I'm the state party chair for the Tennessee Democratic Party. Welcome to our third and final Democratic gubernatorial primary debate. Tonight, you all will have an opportunity to hear from our three dynamic candidates who are running for governor on the Democratic ticket. One of these three individuals will go on to take on Governor Lee in November and defeat him. Tonight, they'll have an opportunity to expound on their platforms and really make the case for why they are the best choice for the Democratic primary and to be our standard bearer in November. In 3 days, each of you will begin the process of voting. Early voting starts on the 15th, goes through July 30th, and election day is August the 4th. It is very important that not only do you get out and vote, but you take someone else to vote and that you spread the word that an election is happening. We need to make sure that we're identifying Democrats and that we're turning Democrats out. So that's enough from me. I'll turn it over to our great moderator for the evening, our state executive committee woman, Jasmine Boyd.
Hello. Well, you know they say the best for last, so it's only fitting that we close out these Democratic gubernatorial debates in Memphis. Again, I'm Jasmine Boyd. So happy to be with y'all tonight. We're going to hear from our three amazing candidates. The rules of engagement for tonight are pretty simple. Our candidates did a straw poll backstage, so Dr. Atwater drew the longest straw, so she's going to get the first crack at our very first question tonight, and she'll also make her closing statements last. Dr. Jason Martin is right there in the middle, so his order doesn't change at the beginning or end of the program. And Councilman J.B. Smiley will give his open last, and he will close first. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer the question. If one of the other candidates mentions their name in their response, they will get 30 seconds to rebuff or add additional color. We're going to have a great time, and I think there are probably some questions that have been generated from the audience. So we'll do a quick lightning round at the end, and we'll try to wrap this up in about 60 minutes. So thank y'all. We'll go ahead and welcome out onto the stage Dr. Jason Martin, Dr. Carnita Atwater, and Councilman J.B. Smiley. All right, so our first set of questions are about building a strong and diverse Tennessee economy. So, Dr. Atwater, the needs of our state are as diverse and varied as the people, culture, and terrain of the three grand divisions. How will your economic plan support the well-being of Tennesseans in rural, urban, and suburban communities?
Good afternoon, and thank you for that question. As the next incoming governor, I will have a plan that afford all Tennesseans to have a seat at the table of prosperity. I will go and do questionnaires across the 95 counties to identify and assess the needs of each county. Most counties different. Most counties have different needs. So I'm going to I want to dictate to the community. I want to meet their needs. So that's why I would do a questionnaire, do the accessibility, and then draw up my plan.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Martin, same question. Need me to repeat it?
good.
All right.
All right. Look, I live in Nashville, and I can look out on the skyline in Nashville, and I can see T-trains as far as you can see. There's a lot of prosperity in the cities. But what we need to do is create an environment where prosperity exists all across the state, not just for one city or the other. We need to focus on three things to make prosperity equal across the state. We need an education system that works for everybody, y'all. And I'm not talking about a privatized education system with guys from Hillsdale coming down here and brainwashing our children. I'm talking about supporting public schools, and I'm talking about having good vocational programs that go beyond K through 12 education. So that if you don't want to go to a 2-year or a 4-year college, you still got the skill set you need to go out and get a job and support your family. The other thing we have to do is we have to expand Medicaid, because you know what? Rural Tennessee, their economies are suffering because the hospitals left. And when the hospitals left, the plants left, the shops left, the businesses left. So we got to bring that Medicaid expansion back to the state of Tennessee. We can cut uninsured folks about 50%. That will create an environment where businesses want to come back to town. And the last thing we need to do to create prosperity all across the state is bring broadband from Memphis to Mountain City, because broadband is a utility for businesses. We got to have it in place.
All right. Thank you. Councilman Smiley, same question. You need me to repeat it?
I'm good.
All right.
I'm so happy to be back home in Memphis, Tennessee. For those of you who don't know, my family home is about 3 blocks from here, on the corner of Mississippi and Williams. In my neighborhood, in my community, my neighbors had to walk to the corner store to get their groceries. I'm going to be making it real plain and simple. Tennessee has the 4th lowest median income in the country. That means families are struggling. The very first thing we need to do, we need to establish a living wage in the state of Tennessee. But in addition to that, let's make it plain and simple. In addition to that, we need to implement workforce development programs throughout our communities, because jobs are coming. The Blue Oval City is here. And if we don't prepare the workforce of today or the workforce of tomorrow for the jobs that are coming, our economies will suffer. We need a plan that reaches not just downtown areas in the community, but in impoverished areas and marginalized communities, because we all deserve a real shot at success. And I believe that this campaign will win this nomination, but not only win this nomination, will put Tennessee in, as it relates to economic development, in the forefront in every conversation, in every decision. Tennessee deserves better, and this campaign will deliver better to Tennessee.
Thank you.
Excuse me, moderator.
Yes.
I want to make sure I understood the rule. Do we have 90 seconds to respond, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I noticed that others are getting 1 minute and 30 seconds. So I want to make sure we follow the rules.
Yes, ma'am. 1 minute and 30 seconds is the equivalent of 90 seconds. Okay, so looking at both Dr. Martin and Councilman Smiley's policy statements or plans, you both identify vocational and higher education opportunities to support job growth and economic advancement. What will you do to ensure development is dispersed equitably? And we'll start with Dr. Martin.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Look, we have a great TCAT system across the state. We need to build on that TCAT system and make sure that it's not just in one community or the other community, but in all communities across the state. We also need to make sure that in our secondary schools, every community's got a secondary school, a high school, that we are focusing on great vocational programs in those communities, so that kids can come out and have a skill, a trade to go out and support their families if they choose not to do a 2 or 4 year college. And the way you do that is with dollars. We have been stagnant when it comes to funding our education system in this state, and we have to step up to the plate. We have to support our kids, we have to support our families, we have to support our public school teachers, and that takes money. It takes dollars. Look, I'm not somebody who thinks that every single problem deserves $1, but this one deserves a lot of dollars and a lot of investment, because this is how we raise up all of our communities. This is how we give kids a chance. This is how we give our families a chance.
Thank you. Councilman Smiley.
Thank you. I'm going to tell you what we know to be true. It's been a long time since, I'm going to be very direct, you all, since someone in the governor's office gave a damn about West Tennessee. We need someone who intimately understands the issues in our community, not someone who has to pick up a book and learn about what's happening in marginalized communities. We need someone who understands what it's like to struggle in Tennessee. If we're going to move our communities forward, we need someone who can speak directly to the issues. Today, I had an opportunity to introduce the RAIN Act before the City Council of Memphis. And we passed that RAIN Act. We need someone with legislative experience that can make sure prosperity is going throughout our communities, not just for the rich and powerful. We know one thing for sure. Bill Lee is about two things: big dollars and big donors. And he continues to leave us behind. This campaign will move the state forward in a more progressive direction. I ask you to join me in this fight to make Tennessee a better place for all.
Thank you. Dr. Atwater, what role do you see education playing in Tennessee's economic development?
First and foremost, we have to be real about education, and we have to address systemic racism if we're going to really be fair and across the board. So I would say that we have to have a holistic approach. We have to address not only the economic perspective, but also the housing perspective, the mental illness, the trauma that our children go after every day. It's hard for a child to be living in poverty and living in dilapidated homes and go to school and do not have funding, but they do not have funding at home. So we need a program that can address the holistic side of a child, the whole child. And that means addressing gun violence, gang violence, and a host of other things in their community. So it's not as simple as just funding. Money cannot solve everything. We have to solve that whole child. Even children living into cars, the homeless children. We need to address the plan where we can address their needs also too. So it's not about just addressing the funding of the school. You need to address also the holistic side of their child.
Thank you. Okay. With current hikes in interest rates, the soaring costs of goods and services, coupled with the lack of affordable housing, Tennesseans, like Americans overall, are feeling the pressure of affording their basic needs. What measures will you take to ease the financial burdens of those in lower income brackets? Dr. Atwater?
Well, being the only person on this stage, I sued the city of Memphis, Shelby County, and the state of Tennessee, and Governor Lee for $20 billion for discriminatory action against the underserved and marginalized community. So what I would do first, I would earmark the money from the Tennessee Assistance for Needy Families and also the Rainy Day funds. I would earmark that money to set aside to address those needs.
Thank you. Dr. Martin?
Governor Lee has waged a war on communities in need his entire time in office. And I'm talking about cutting unemployment benefits, y'all, in the middle of a pandemic when people were out of work and businesses were closed. I'm talking about hoarding the TANF funds, temporary assistance for needy family funds. This is money that comes from the federal government to the state of Tennessee to take care of folks, to take care of the neediest of those among us. And it's about $70 to $90 million a year. And rather than using that money for the good of folks, they just let it pile up, over $700 million. And it wasn't until this year, an election year, when I'm pretty sure they hear footsteps coming, that they decided to release some of that money. We need to take care of people. We need to, quit thinking about big business, quit thinking about trying to line the pockets of our buddies, quit playing politics, quit playing red and blue sports with people's lives, and take care of one another. So I'm talking about tax incentives for the elderly among us to support their property tax increases that they may be feeling. I'm talking about putting in an education program that's fully funded, that gives kids across the state, in every corner of the state, an opportunity to have hope and have prosperity. I'm talking about looking at the gas tax. We capped the gas tax for big business here in the state of Tennessee. Did y'all know that? We capped the gas tax for big business. But people, citizens, those of us who work for a living, they just let it go. So we need to think about how we can use tax policy to create prosperity, put money back in people's pocket. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Smiley?
Brian Stevenson once said, in order to address a problem, we all have to be in close proximity with it. And folks like to talk about the only candidate. I will tell you what the only candidate is. I'm the only candidate that lives in a marginalized community. What I mean by that is, if we want to talk about how to get things done, you need someone who actually knows something about how to get things done. Every piece of legislation that I passed before our body in the Memphis City Council has been supported by both Democrats and Republicans, because I understand one thing, and it's common ground. If we want to get things done on the state level, we need to know the people that we work with, and we need to have the skill set necessary to make things done. We don't need to worry or rely on lobbyists or our aides to tell us what the law says. We need someone who understands specifically what the law is. And as relates how to make things better, folks in my district aren't talking about TANF funding. What's that? What they're talking about? They want MLGW to come and put funds to weatherize their homes. They want the potholes in their communities to be fixed. They want the trash to be picked up in their community. They also want someone to care about people. We need someone who understands what it's like to struggle, not someone who's simply talking about it.
Thank you. This question's for Dr. Martin. Dr. Martin, on your website, you state the need for a better way to fund our schools, taking into account the different economies across communities and the different resources needed in each district. As governor, what are some of these better ways you would fund schools based on local economies?
Thank you for that question. So let's talk about where we've been, because that's how you understand the crisis about how TISA got implemented, the governor's new plan. We have been at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to funding our schools for decades. I'm talking about 45th, 46th in the whole country. That's all while we're sitting on piles and piles of money in the rainy day fund, y'all. I want to know, why can't they be as proud of fully resourced public schools? Why can't they be as proud of fully resourced teachers as they are of that big old pile of money? So we need to have an education system and a funding system, a formula for education that reflects our values. And that is that no matter where you live, you should have a chance at a good education. Our current system underfunds education to the tune of 11,000 teacher positions. In other words, the counties have to pick up over $2 billion of individual expenses that the state does not cover for them. And if you live in a place like Williamson County, a wealthy county, no problem. They could write a check, right? Got top public schools in the country or in the state, because they can just write a check and make it happen. But our underserved communities, our underdeveloped communities, they need help. So I think we need to subsidize education in those communities that are in need. We need to put our money where our mouth is and support communities that have opportunity to do better, so we can give those kids some hope. And look, that means not only focusing on economic activity, but it means focusing on geography. We can't just have one part of the state getting all the resources. It's got to be distributed equitably, and I promise you that's going to happen when I'm governor.
Thank you. Councilman Smiley, your policy plan outlines several issues with new legislation, the Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement, or TISA. How would you fund public education in Tennessee? And to quote your plan, prioritize mandatory teacher pay increases and per pupil funding.
So let's just look at TISA. And if I must say, Bill Lee has been hell-bent on creating this new institution, private education funded by public dollars. But what our Constitution tells us is that education, public education, should be state funded. More specifically, let's talk about how much money we're investing in children and per pupil funding. We're among the lowest. But in addition to that, ask yourself, what happens when the grandfather clause reaches its end? Local districts will have to ultimately pay the price. That means local leaders will be faced with two decisions: to raise your sales tax or your property tax. But that's not the way it should be. But in addition to that, there is no mandatory clause of language that will mandate a teacher pay increase. We talk about how to put children in a better position. I'm gonna tell you what you do. You pay teachers, you get them to stay, you get them encouraged so that they can do the very thing that we want them to do, to put our children, train our children, and put them in a better position so that they can scale up and go into whatever work environment they so choose. But in addition to that, every year, this state saves about $300 million and put it in a rainy day fund. It's time for us to take those funds, invest it directly in education, and make sure that we have high-performing, fully funded public educations.
Thank you. Dr. Atwater, what is your vision and funding model for prioritizing public education in Tennessee?
First, what I would do is go back and restructure the tax structure in Nashville and across the state of Tennessee. Most large corporations does not pay for any taxes. So I would go back and restructure taxes. Then I would do in tax incentive for the senior citizen, for people living in poverty, and single parents also. But I would take that money and I would distribute that money in programs like homeless for home ownership. I would make a moratorium for senior citizens so they couldn't pay taxes for at least about 5 years, so they could save money up in order to buy food or gas or other necessities. And then I would give teachers a decent pay. I would raise their salaries so that they could have money to live off of and not have to spend their money on children school supplies. Because as a former teacher, I have spent my own personal money on schools. And then also too, life experience. I bring life experience to the table, a proven record. I feed 10,000 people every year. I create 200 jobs for ex-felons. I buy 5,000 book bags and school supplies for children. So I wouldn't do anything different that I'm not doing now. And that's speaking truth to power, because we can talk, but I can walk the walk.
With the use of critical race theory as a Republican dog whistle and the resurgence of book bans, education and curriculum have become more politicized than ever before. How would you work with the General Assembly and state agencies to ensure Tennessee children are receiving a fact-based education throughout the state? We'll start with Dr. Atwater.
First and foremost, there will be no change in our school system or the legislative body until we have a mindset change. And we need to address the systemic racism mindset, that antiquated mindset that we have from the local, state, and federal level. But I think that one of the things I have done, even before I become governor, I have preserved history with an African American museum. And I have taught people all across the state of Tennessee and 50 states about critical race theory. And I went into Lemoyne Owens, University of Memphis, other colleges to teach. We won't stop. We won't be able to stop the people that's in position if they have a mindset of antiquated, insidious racism. So we will have to go back and teach them what I call cultural awareness, so that they can, if you know better, you can do better.
Thank you. Dr. Martin?
Y'all, this General Assembly has attacked public education at every turn. And they do it with lies. They do it with hate. There's people out there who benefit from dividing us up into East, West, and Middle Tennessee, Black Tennesseans, White Tennesseans, Brown Tennesseans. And they're seeking to benefit from that. When it comes to critical race theory, what I tell people is that our teachers need to be free to teach American history as it happened. We need to be able to go out and teach folks that racism is a part of the fabric of this country. Racism is a part of the present of this country. And if we don't want it to be a part of the future, we need to talk about it. We need our kids thinking about it. We need them to understand that they need to be part of the solution. That starts at a young age. That starts in school. We shouldn't be firing teachers for having certain books in the library. We shouldn't be having librarians, under threat of losing their job because of a set of ideas that they have for kids to learn about. I've seen what misinformation can do in the hospital. I'm an ICU doctor, and I saw more than 400 patients of mine die from COVID-19. And a lot of that, in my opinion, was due to misinformation. I see that same lack of leadership when it comes to this issue in public education. We need to go in there and we need to tell the truth. We need to chip away at that supermajority so that we can get political power back and make a difference in the state.
Councilman Smiley.
Thank you. When I was elected to serve on the Memphis City Council, the only thing that I was told, my mentors told me, the wheels of government move slow. They said it would be impossible for a young Black man to get anything done on the Memphis City Council. And I heard it, but I took a completely different approach. I went out to eat with every single member of the Memphis City Council. prior to my election. The reason being is because I wanted to understand the people that I'm working with. I wanted to understand their issues. I wanted to understand their pain points, but I also wanted to understand what they believe their constituency wanted. Because the ugly truth is, most of the laws that we see passed, most of the policies we see pushed happen behind closed doors. If we want to address those issues, we need someone who has a track record of getting things done with folks who don't necessarily believe like us. What they're doing is attempting to whitewash history. We need someone willing and able to stand up and fight for us. The question you all have to ask yourself, which one of the candidates on the stage that you believe in your heart will fight for you? And I think without a shadow of a doubt, every person in this building would say Councilman J.B. Smiley, because I've been there, I've done it, and I will continue fighting for people.
Healthcare is a human right. That's the statement. After 2 years of an enduring global pandemic that has upended life as we knew it and claimed the lives of people of all ages, the availability and access to high-quality healthcare is more essential than ever. How would you expand the availability, access, and quality of healthcare for the uninsured and underinsured in Tennessee? Dr. Atwater?
First, going back to life experience, I think I'm the only one on this panel can speak to taking care of the homeless people, ones that did not have health care. And when we talk about COVID, having health care that was not available to every citizen, that started before COVID. What about the people who caught COVID in the prison system that they did not take care of? What about the people who caught COVID in the homeless community, but they did not take care of them? So we want to address things when it happened, but we had these problems a long time ago in the underserved community. So therefore, I have a working history of what I can do for the people in the streets all across the city of Memphis with the health care. So what I would do is also do a universal health care plan for everyone. But that plan would not only talk about health care, but it would be mental illness, trauma, and counseling. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Martin?
Yeah, thank you. As a medical practitioner, this is obviously something that's near and dear to my heart. And I'm so glad to be tonight at one of Tennessee's great HBCUs, because I spent the majority of my medical practice at Meharry Medical College, the nation's oldest historically Black medical college over in Nashville. And in that setting, I had the privilege of taking care of folks who didn't have any insurance. I had the privilege of taking care of prisoners, working Tennesseans who just couldn't make the ends meet to get health insurance. I had to see people in my own office sitting across from me choose between getting treatment or dying. And some of them chose to die because they didn't want to saddle their families with medical debt, y'all. This is happening in 2022 in our state. It doesn't have to be that way. If we had a governor with any courage, if we had a General Assembly with any courage, we would expand Medicaid in the state of Tennessee. And let me tell you why it's so important. Because we're passing up over $1 billion a year, $1 billion with a B, for the last decade that we could be using to take care of folks. It's our money. They're trying to give it back to us. Let's get it back. Let's put it to work in our communities. And let me tell you why it's so important, because we lead the nation in medical bankruptcies per capita right here in Tennessee. We lead the nation in hospital closures per capita right here in Tennessee. And that affects folks in rural Tennessee and our younger populations disproportionately. We can fix it with signatures and courage. Let's get it done.
Councilman Smiley?
We don't get out of this problem by doing the same thing we already done. And what I mean by that is we've already seen what it's like when someone with no government experience tells us they're going to fix our government. We saw that with President Donald Trump, an absolute disaster for this country. We see that with Governor Bill Lee, an absolute disaster for Tennessee. Failed policy after failed policy. Detrimental policy after detrimental policy. The way that we right this ship is electing someone with the experience of making things happen. 400,000. That's the number of Tennesseans that simply don't have access to healthcare. If we would do the right thing, as my colleagues have stated, by expanding Medicaid, we're providing access to healthcare for 400,000 people. But in addition to that, that's not the only way we solve or address healthcare concerns. 1 million. That's the number of people who live in food deserts. We have to address food inaccessibility, but also make sure we're doing everything in our power to improve health outcomes. And we need someone who understands how to get those things done. I'm the only one who has a history of making things happen.
All right. Many communities throughout our country continue to experience the long-term ramifications of the opioid crisis, while the CDC has identified suicide as the third leading cause of death in 15 to 24-year-olds. How might you reimagine healthcare to treat the whole person beyond physical ailments? Dr. Atwater?
First of all, before we can address opioids, let's address crack cocaine. When we had crack cocaine epidemic, they criminalized those people. And you still have families today suffering from that. Now we're dealing with the opioid, which affects white families. Now we want to give preventive measures. I think that in order for you to address any drug ailment, you have to address it from a realistic and address systemic racism again, okay? Until we fix those problems, we would never have fairness across the board when it comes to healthcare. But I would address not only from a drug perspective, I would address homelessness, the nutritional value of the people, housing, because people living on the streets. So they can't get health care if they're on the streets and you cannot find them. I personally know I can take you right now and show you 150 people in Memphis living on railroad tracks, under cardboards. So it's easy to say what you're going to do, but unless you have boots on the ground like I have for the last 45 years, you cannot identify these people so you can help them.
Dr. Martin?
Yeah, thank you for that question. First of all, you all don't be fooled. Don't think that the only face of public service is being elected. Public service has lots of faces. You know, if you want to look at legislators and lawyers, look at the General Assembly. It's full of them right now. So if that is the metric for success, you'd think they'd be turning out successful piece of legislation after successful piece of legislation, right? No, they're turning out slates of hate. We need someone in this office with a heart for service. We need someone who's got a record of serving our communities. And that's why, you know, I want to be your governor, because I want to bring that heart for service and caring about people back to the highest office in the land. And you know what? Luckily, there's lots of people who also agree with that, including legislators in the General Assembly right here from Memphis, like Representative Antonio Parkinson, Representative Tory Harris, Representative Dwayne Thompson. There's lots of folks who believe in this campaign. I want you to believe in this campaign too. Let me address the question briefly. We need to legalize cannabis in the state of Tennessee. We need to make it legal, recreational and medical. Let me tell you why. Because there is decreased opioid addiction when you do that. We're going to generate $400 million in tax money that we're going to use to support healthcare in the state of Tennessee. We're going to expand Medicaid because we know that Medicaid expansion decreases opioid dependency in communities. We also know that it decreases health disparities in communities. We're going to make it happen.
And Councilman Smiley.
Not literally, but figuratively. I didn't become a Democrat yesterday. I didn't decide to run for public office yesterday. I didn't decide to visit Memphis for the first time yesterday. I'm true to this. What I mean by that is, if we want to address issues in our community, if we want to address the opioid epidemic in our community, we need people who understand it. My mentor, Julian Bolton, is the lead attorney in Shelby County for opioid epidemic in this state. The reason that is important, we need someone with firsthand experience, legal experience, to make sure that the laws that we are drafting do not have disparate impacts on our community. Just like Dr. Atwater said, if this was crack, black folks would be locked up. But since we're talking about people who do not look like me, we're talking about what we can do. But the truth of the matter is, we need to be investing in diversionary courts, drug courts, so that everybody who calls this state home will have a real shot at success, get the treatment they deserve and need. And we do that by expanding Medicaid, because Medicaid gives us the resources necessary to address those issues. Thank you so much.
So we've heard Medicaid expansion mentioned several times this evening already, so it's only fitting that we talk about that a little bit more. So as governor, would you support the expansion of Medicaid in Tennessee? And if you do, how would your proposed expansion improve health outcomes in our state? Dr. Atwater?
Being that my specialty is in healthcare management and public health education, it's not enough for you to say Medicaid, a Medicare expansion. We have to address other aspects of that. So if you're going to expand it, also you have to address the abuse, pharmaceutical abuse from pharmacists and physicians. Until doctors, physicians address the abuse that's going on in the pharmaceutical arena, then you can expand Medicare, Medicaid all you want. That's where most of the money is going. You have older people eating cat food in the underserved community because their medication is too high. But I didn't see no physician speaking out about that 10, 15 years ago when I was speaking out about it and filed a lawsuit for that. So we cannot just talk about, oh, we're going to expand Medicare. I do not want to be the candidate, just say what I think people want to hear. I have the proven record of what I can do for the people. I spend my own personal money buying medication for the senior citizen. So talk is cheap, and that's all I have to say on that matter.
And Dr. Atwater, just to clarify, would you support the expansion of Medicaid in Tennessee?
Absolutely. I've been pushing it for 25 years. Absolutely. But in order to expand, you have to know about ICD-9 and CPT code and all that. That's how our billions of dollars is leaving out the hands of the community that way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Martin, we know that you do support the expansion of Medicaid in Tennessee. How does your proposed expansion improve health outcomes in our state?
Who wants to beat Governor Bill Lee in November? To do that, you got to do the work. You got to go to every corner of the state. You can leave no county behind. Which county of our 95 doesn't deserve attention? Our campaign, we believe that every single county needs attention. That's why we've been to 95 of them. We've been more than 30,000 miles up and down I-40 talking about a proud Democratic message. I know that Democratic values are also proud Tennessee values. And I'm talking about access to a great education, access to great health care, and access to a great job, no matter the color of your skin, the zip code you live in, who you choose to love, or what your native tongue is. That's the Tennessee I'm fighting for, and I'm proud to do it. And I'm proud to have so much support. And let me tell you this. We are going to expand Medicaid in the state of Tennessee, and this is why. It decreases opioid addiction. It decreases by half the number of uninsured patients in this state from 800,000 to about 400,000. It decreases health disparities among the races. It's the right thing to do, not only with your heart. If you can't see that with your heart, that it's the right thing to do to take care of the health of your brothers and sisters. Just think about it with your wallet, with your pocketbook, because this is the key to generating economic prosperity from one corner of the state to the other. We're going to make it happen.
Councilman Smiley?
Thank you. There's been a lot of talk about support. And, I can say very proudly we've been endorsed by more elected officials than any other candidate. But there's also been a lot of talk about expanding Medicaid. And that's the right thing to do. But every other candidate on the stage will tell you it stops there. But the truth of the matter is, when you get TennCare and you go into a physician's office or a clinic, a lot of times they're turned away because TennCare simply won't cover their bills. What we need to do is understand that we need to create a healthcare fund. Every year we save $300 million we put in this rainy day fund. What I'm proposing is, in addition to expanding Medicaid, we create a healthcare fund. So when those physicians simply cannot afford to take care of a client, they can apply to the state for funding so that everyone who calls to stay home, from the homeless to the homeowner, and every man, woman, and child in between, can get access to affordable and accessible healthcare.
Thank you. Just a quick reminder to all of our guests tonight, please be sure to complete the poll before we close out tonight. Please be sure to complete the online poll before we close. Just a few more questions. So early voting begins Friday, and we are all gearing up for a critically important race in Shelby County. the district attorney's race. What role do you envision county district attorneys and the judicial branch playing in your plans for improving crime and public safety? Dr. Atwater?
First of all, I have life experience with this subject matter. I stood side by side with Pamela Moses when the DA tried to give her 6 years in jail for voting. I think that my governorship will address DAs from this perspective. I think that all DA, police officers, sheriff, all the stakeholders should come together at the table and we come up with a comprehensive community prevention plan. I am the only candidate on this stage who have thought about a comprehensive plan, and the state of Tennessee have never had a comprehensive plan in its history. I will be bringing that plan to the table. But I will be letting not only myself, but I will be bringing the stakeholders, parents, teachers, principals, pastors, community leaders, DAs, police officers, bring them to the table because we need a meeting of the mind. 350 people was killed in the state of Tennessee. And no one, and they was African-American people. No one is addressing that. It's business as usual. And so as the DA, I would put them to accountability.
Thank you. Dr. Martin?
So I've heard it said that district attorneys are the closest thing you get to a king in your community because they're up for a long time and they have a lot of decision-making power about who gets prosecuted, who doesn't. So it's very important that we choose wisely when these folks are up for election. And we need to elect folks who reflect our values. District attorneys are the closest thing you get to a king. What he said. Yeah. That was great. So we need to make sure that we elect folks who reflect our values. And another thing I want to speak about when it comes to the role of DAs in our community. DAs make a lot of important decisions, like with women's health rights. We've recently heard that a lot of district attorneys across the state are not going to prosecute physicians who are taking care of women and protecting their health autonomy. We need to support them in that. But we also need to note that the General Assembly has the power to appoint a special prosecutor to override local communities. We need to fight that, y'all. We need to make sure that the power of protected communities stays with the folks who are closest to those communities. And so we need to make sure we fight against preemption at the state level.
Councilman Smiley?
I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege because I believe everyone here is Shelby County residents. I often tell people this campaign is not about me, but what we're fighting for, particularly in Shelby County, is about each and every one of you. So I want you to do me a favor. If you're going to support our campaign, great. But I also want to make sure you go to the polls and vote for Steve Mulroy. And I'm briefly going to talk about it. What Amy Warwick is doing into our communities, prosecuting juveniles at a rate that's never been seen, locking up juveniles, locking up black and brown people, treating black folks differently. We need a new district attorney in Shelby County, and that district attorney will be Steve Mulroy. But it doesn't stop there. Not only do we need a new district attorney, we need to make sure we're electing people locally who work hand in hand with the district attorney's office, making sure we're investing in programs like the group violence intervention program so that we can stop crime before it starts. In addition to that, we need to make sure we elect a governor who understands gun crime in the city of Memphis, gun crime in urban communities across this state happen because they do not believe in us. They do not care about us. They put more guns in our community. They allow our people to kill themselves. But in addition to that, they make sure they're locking us up, sending us to for-profit prisons and leaving us behind. Enough is enough. Vote for JB Smiley.
All right, we have reached the lightning round portion of the program. So we've got a few audience submitted questions, and I've just got a few more questions. So we'll go audience questions first. As a reminder, you have 60 seconds to answer these questions. All right, Dr. Atwater, what do you admire about your rivals?
Ooh, whoever did that is wrong. Just wrong.
Help me, Lord. Actually, I think we have three dynamic gubernatorial candidates.
That's right.
And actually, since we've been on the campaign trail, I admire so many things about them, the tenacity and the perseverance and their loving heart, their loving spirit. I don't think none of us have had any bad moments. So with that said, that's what I admire about them. They're loving people. They're worthy of your vote. But remember, the best woman for the job is Dr. Atwater.
Come on, now, you leave me hanging.
Dr. Martin, you're up.
Well played.
Same question.
Yes, same
Yeah.
question.
Thank you for that. Look, I say this every debate, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I have learned a lot from you all. This conversation, it gets heated sometimes, but it's supposed to. This is a big decision we're all making together. I have a ton of respect for everybody on the stage, and you will never hear me waste a breath or a dollar saying something negative about another Democratic candidate trying to get Bill Lee out of that office. And I don't believe it's going to happen, but if it does, I'll have one of their T-shirts on August 5th because we're going to get him out of office. We're going to have it. Get him out of office.
Councilman Smiley. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I was just going to, of course, end strong and say, but I believe we're going to take this thing. Thank you, guys.
All right. And Councilman Smiley.
Dr. Martin may not know this. I think we were, I can't remember what particular county. It was right after, my father. A lot of you all know my father's sick. And I was talking to him and I was like, yeah, my father's sick. And he, has this rare condition called amyloidosis. And Dr. Martin literally told me every single thing about that condition, how rare it was, and the fact that he's never seen anything about it. The fact that he asked me questions specifically about, how my father's doing every single time tells me he has a loving heart. So I appreciate that. And specifically related to Dr. Carnita Atwater, I've been knowing Dr. Atwater for a long time, y'all. So our relationship is pretty good. But one thing I know for sure, she shows up for people. In New Chicago, where my brother lives, my nieces and nephews walk around that community oftentimes. They said, Dr. Atwater's giving away bikes. I know for sure that, we have the most experience. I know for sure we have more people supporting this campaign than anyone else. But these two people are fine folks, and I'd be glad to call you friends. Thank you.
All right. That's an excellent segue, and I'm going to tweak the rules just a little bit on this one. So we'll make this a quick 30-second response. Depending on the outcome of August 4th and whoever ends up being the Democratic nominee, will the two candidates who do not become the nominee pledge to support the nominee? We'll start with Dr. Atwater.
I made that pledge early on. Okay, I think this is not about an individual person. This is not about us running for a political position. This is about preserving the Democratic Party. So whoever wins, they have my full support, 100%.
All right, Dr. Martin.
Amen. Yeah, whoever wins this thing, I'm going to be working every single day to get them elected because I've seen how harmful Governor Bill Lee's policies are. And I know that the Democratic vision for Tennessee is a winning vision, and it's focused on taking care of folks instead of taking care of big businesses and lining people's pockets with money. We're going to make it happen.
Councilman Smiley.
What I do know to be true is that Bill Lee doesn't care about students. What I do know to be true is Bill Lee doesn't care about our teachers. What I do know to be true is Bill Lee doesn't care about our LGBTQIA community. What I do know to be true is Bill Lee doesn't care about a single person in this room. So would I support the two fine people beside me for Governor Bill Lee? Absolutely. It's the right thing to do. And our job as a people is to use all of our resources, all of our influence to send the worst governor in the state of Tennessee history home. And his name is Governor Bill Lee.
Okay, so just to affirm your positions on a few things that are key to our democratic values. First up, do you support a woman's bodily autonomy and the right to decide whether to sustain or terminate a pregnancy? And we'll make this a yes or no question. Dr. Atwater?
The most important question, as far as I'm concerned tonight, I say yes, but I could have found it forever.
Thank you. Dr. Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Smiley?
No, I'm not brief. If you've been paying attention, the city council just passed the RAIN Act, which decriminalizes abortion in the city of Memphis and Shelby County. And guess who sponsored it? Councilman J.B. Smiley Jr. So the answer to the question is absolutely. We can talk about it, but only one person. You get the rest.
All right.
I want to have a response since you gave him more than 3 seconds.
Go ahead, Dr. Atwater.
Because we can talk about it, but let's be about it. I've been taking care of women for 25 years. Women that's being raped and living out in the street. I have housed them for over 25 years. So it's not about just the abortion. It's about taking care of the women who've been raped and have to have an abortion also too. And that comes way before this bill. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Martin has to respond.
Dr.
Dr.
Martin,
Martin has to talk.
absolutely going to give Dr. Martin an
Dr. Martin has to
opportunity.
talk.
Look, I've been in that intensive care unit when a woman's bleeding out from a ruptured ectopic pregnancy, y'all. And in this new trigger law that Governor Lee and the radical supermajority have put into place, if a physician handles that medically or surgically, they are liable to go up for a felony trial. That is radical. It's not who we are. We're not going to let it stand when I'm governor.
Okay. Governor Bill Lee continues to support and push right to work legislation and amendments. While our very own Senator Sarah Kyle was quoted saying, right to work is a false slogan. The true effect of this legislation is to destroy the freedom and power of collective bargaining. Where do you stand on right to work legislation and amendments in Tennessee? Dr. Atwater?
Oh, I'm going to say Sarah time. I'm lucky here. Okay. But I have been working hand in hand for over 25 years against right to work. I have been on the protest line against it. I have stood with students. I have stood with family members, and I have protested about 30 years against it. I think that for us to allow them to go into our Constitution, change our Constitution, and put that into the amendment is absolutely wrong, and I will stand against it. When I become governor, I will rescind that bill from day one. Thank you.
Dr. Martin?
Y'all, we all know right to work is right to work more for less. We know that's what it really is. And we're going to work hard to make sure it doesn't make it into the Constitution. That's another reason we got to get out and vote this year, y'all. We got to make sure that doesn't get codified into the Constitution. Here's what we know about organized labor. We need to support it. They brought us the safe workplace. They brought us the 40-hour work week. They brought us benefits to support a family. They brought us retirement with dignity. And we need to go out and support them. And especially all these new businesses are coming to town. Blue Oval City, that's a huge multi-billion-dollar development. I don't have to tell you all that. We need to make sure that organized labor, that the workers get a fair shot with all that prosperity when it comes raining down here in Southwest Tennessee. Let's make it happen.
On the subject of workers' rights, do you support? Councilman
I'm feeling
Smiley,
kinda slow.
I apologize. Please forgive me. I was focused by all means.
No, Jasmine, I'm concerned about you. But in all seriousness, I'm going to take a few moments to shout out one of the hardest working legislators this fighting for us in the Capitol, Senator Ramesh Akre. Let's give it up for her. We have some people who are working hard for us every single day, and I do think it's appropriate that we take time to acknowledge the folks who are fighting a good fight for us in Nashville. But in addition to that, and I do want to shout out the best campaign manager on this side of Mississippi, Lynn Whitney. Shout out to Lynn. But in all seriousness, y'all, real quick, if you pick up one of our campaign materials, you will see very clear at the very top of it is vote no on Amendment 1. That's vote no to right to work legislation. We have to do more than just talking about organized labor. When the labor unions call me, I'm one of the first people to stand. When labor unions call me to ask me to issue a statement on their behalf, I'm one of the first people to issue the statement. That's the reason we've been endorsed by ASME. That's the reason we've been endorsed by Teams. So that's the reason that almost every labor union in this city, when I ran to be a member of the Memphis City Council, has endorsed our campaign. You want somebody who stands with organized labor, you want someone who supports organized labor, it's Councilman J.B. Smiley Jr.
Making sure he's completely done since I almost skipped him. All right. So
Shady.
Do you support a living wage for workers? And would you raise the minimum wage in Tennessee? Dr. Atwater.
Yes, I would. Matter of fact, I have a comprehensive plan that certainly addressed that. I think starting off, every citizen working should receive $23 per hour. When they was on the strike with Starbucks, I was there. Fight for 15 at McDonald's, I was there. Kroger's, I was there fighting with them. So yes, as the governor, I would raise the raise for the livable wages. But not only that, I would also give them benefits. Again, benefits that address housing. It's one thing to have a livable wage, but you need somewhere to live. You have people living in hotels and in their cars. So I would address the housing, the mental health, drug usage, and economic disparities.
Thank you. Dr. Martin.
We absolutely need to do everything we can to raise the minimum wage in the state of Tennessee. Let me tell you why. Because that $7 and some change is worth less and less every day as it's getting eaten up by inflation. It's getting eaten up by rising food prices. It's getting eaten up by rising gas prices. So we need to get more money into folks' pockets. And I think we need to work with local governments across the state to make it happen.
Councilman Smiley.
Studies show that the more money you have in your pocket, the less likely you are to commit a crime. We spend a lot of time talking about the reasons we need to establish a living wage in the state, but what's often lost on folks who get up here is the root causes of crime. The root causes of crime has everything to do with poverty. If we want to address crime, we need to make sure we're addressing poverty. And we address poverty by establishing a living wage in this state. But not only do we establish a living wage in the state, we need to make sure we're electing people who understand the importance of investing in affordable housing. Oftentimes, developers come into our community, start developing, price us out, and leaving us behind. Enough is enough.
All right, we're down to the last two questions. And Dr. Martin, you've already given your stance on this, so I'm going to toss it to your counterparts up here. Dr. Atwater and Councilman Smiley, do you support the decriminalization and legalization of cannabis in Tennessee?
Okay, LJ.
Well, being a former registered nurse, I do support the medicinal part of it because 25 years ago, we gave veterans marijuana. The only problem I have is that we will have to make sure we look at the pros and cons from the side effects of the medication, of the marijuana. But I would.
Okay, thank you.
Support it.
Councilman Smiley?
But y'all know this. Not too long ago, the city of Memphis, the city council attempted to decriminalize marijuana. But guess who came knocking on our door? Big brother, Governor Billy. He told us we couldn't do that because he doesn't believe in progressive legislation. But the truth of the matter is, once we legalize marijuana recreationally, if we tax that, you know, this crumbling infrastructure we have, you know, the fact that our schools are not fully funded, we can invest those dollars back into the communities, back into people, and make sure that everyone who calls to stay home has an opportunity to live a prosperous life. And those are the things that I would do.
Final question of the lightning round. What is your stance on school voucher programs? Dr. Atwater?
I do not entertain school voucher program. I believe in public schools, and I believe that public schools is a human right. I do feel like not only do we need to address the funding aspect of it, again, we need to address it from a holistic approach. And so I would have a plan as a governor to address, again, homeless children, giving money to teachers so they can address other needs like mental health and trauma. We have children that watch gunshots in their community every day. And so therefore we need to set aside money for those children going through trauma. And we wonder why so much crime, because we're not addressing the underlying cause that go on the streets of Tennessee.
Dr. Martin?
Voucher programs are weapons to defund public schools, period. Absolutely. And you know what? The General Assembly, they told us as much during the COVID crisis. I don't know if you remember this. There were a couple of school districts that were trying to have mask requirements to protect their kids, to protect their teachers. And Cameron Sexton and the General Assembly threatened to implement targeted voucher programs in those districts just to punish them. In my mind, that's an admission that they're weapons. They're there to tear public schools down. They're there to take the authority away from local school boards. So we absolutely need to oppose them at every turn, and Governor Lee is wrong on that issue.
Councilman Smiley.
As I look at the current two districts that are currently fighting that battle of vouchers, guess what one of those districts? Shelby County. We're fighting that battle. We're not talking about the battle, we're fighting that battle. So absolutely we stand against voucher programs, but we also need to be standing against the TISA formula. I'm gonna tell you why. This new formula allows the dollars to follow the student. But let me ask you this question. What happens when the parents decide to take their children out of public school and go to private school? We need to be standing against not just vouchers, but also this TISA formula. Because it's not about providing a good opportunity for children. It's all about the same thing that this governor's always been about. Big dollars, big donors, and his friends at Hillsdale. That's not right for the state of Tennessee, and it's definitely not right for Shelby County.
Okay. Well, many thanks to all three of you wonderful candidates for a rousing debate this evening. We're going to give each of you an opportunity for closing statements. One thing to ponder on as you render your closing statements, what makes you the best candidate to go toe-to-toe with Bill Lee? Councilman Smiley?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I just want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. So give yourself a round of applause. I want to thank Dr. Atwater and Dr. Martin for being here today, because it takes all of us to get people excited and energized about this particular race. That's right. When I think about our candidacy and what we present that's different than anyone else, it's about three things. The state of Tennessee needs someone who's competent, compassionate, but also someone who understands what it's like to struggle. If I can be very specific today, when we talk about marginalized communities, we talk about families having the fourth lowest median income in the country. I'm the only candidate that lives in a community just like that. I'm the only candidate that understands what it's like when laws are being written and has the ability to comprehend but not call someone and ask what the law is doing. I'm the only candidate that has any government experience. Some folks may say it doesn't matter, but the truth of the matter is, if we continue to elect people who have to ask somebody about what's happening, our communities will still look like they're looking now. You all have a decision to make, and it's about how we beat Billy. I'm gonna tell you how we beat Billy. We get Generation Z excited about this election. We get millennials excited about this election. We get marginalized communities excited about this election, and collectively, we will have the willpower to send Bill Lee home. It's not about big donors. It's not about big dollars. It's not about anything else. It's about the people. And that's what we will do. Learn more by visiting votejbsmiley.com.
Dr. Martin?
I am so proud to share the stage with you all. Thank you for another great meeting. People ask me, as someone who's new to politics, what is the lesson that you have learned from traveling across this state and every corner of it? And it's that we have so much more that unites us, so much more that brings us together than that which divides us. I told you earlier, there's a lot of people who benefit from chopping us up into different groups. That keeps us distracted. We need to come together with one mind and focus on the things that bring us together. And I think that's access to great education, access to great healthcare, access to great infrastructure, equity in the workplace, and in job growth and job creation across the state. And that is what our campaign is focused on. And look, this vision is informed after talking to thousands and thousands of Tennesseans. I've had a heart for service my entire career, and I've been serving the needy folks in Middle Tennessee, those without insurance, those who have less. And I'm telling you, we need to stand up for those folks. We need to stand up for working people. We need to stand up for the disadvantaged among us, because right now we've got a governor who's so willing to play red and blue politics, even if lives are at stake. And that's not who we are. We solemnly believe that we can do better for one another by caring about one another. That's why I'm in this race. that's consistent with my work history and my record as a human being in Middle Tennessee. And I'll look forward to taking those skills to the governor's office in November. Thank you.
Dr. Atwater?
The truth of the matter, I am the people's governor. I have a proven record of what I can do for the people all across the state of Tennessee. I did not have to travel to the 95 counties because I have a working rapport with the people in the state of Tennessee. I have fed people all across the state of Tennessee, donated clothes and book bags. And matter of fact, when Waverly had their flood, I went there to take 5,000 bottled packaged water. When Union City had their tornado, I took clothes for the children and toiletries there. So I have a proven record of what I can do for the state of Tennessee. I initially ran for governor to put people back into politics. I'm not interested in playing politics. I didn't come to do any ballroom political grandstanding. I could care less if I have a relationship with politicians, because let the truth be known, you have physicians and attorneys who have been in the seat of office for a long time, and we're still in a state of emergency in the state of Tennessee. You need a person that's going to represent the common people, the grassroots people. And I have 500 grassroots people standing behind me. No, they don't have big names, but I'm representing the common people. And I want to put people back into politics. I am a boots on the ground candidate. Vote for Carnita Atwater for governor, and I will be your people's governor.
All right, y'all give one more round of applause to our three amazing candidates tonight. Again, I'm Committee Woman Jasmine Boyd, and we're just so happy that you all came out
We're on the stage,
to hear from us tonight. Your mic is still on, Councilman Smiley. Thank y'all for coming out. Don't forget to complete the poll on your phones. And early voting begins on Friday. Voting locations open at 11 a.m. Thank y'all. Have a great night.